Oh yeah? Well, Mom and Dad don't love you anyway. You're adopted. That was my brother's parting shot. I don't know what we were fighting about because I was 4 at the time. But I could tell by the tone in his voice that whatever it was that he said, it wasn't good. So I go running to my mom to find out what it is that adoption means. And I remember so clearly her pulling me close into her lap and laying her cheek against my head and saying, "Oh, honey." Adopted means that Mommy and Daddy couldn't have a child of their own. So out of all the little girls in the world, we chose you to be our daughter. Adopted means you're chosen. It means you're special. And your brother's adopted too. Now go play. There were no laws or precepts for adoption in ancient Israel. Care for the widow, yes. For the orphan, sure. But there was nothing about taking someone that was not of your family and making them your own. But God does adopt the nation of Israel. It says in Hosea 11 that God saw Israel and he saw them and treated them as one who would hold a child to the cheek. And in Deuteronomy 14, he calls them treasured. They were chosen. They were special. Now, John 3:16 tells us that Jesus' birth story is that he was God's only begotten son. This means that he came of Mary. And we hear a lot of Mary giving birth to him and him being God's son. But what we often don't think about was that Jesus had an adopted father. Joseph, Mary's husband, was Jesus's adopted dad. And he raised Jesus as his own. We have this photo of the day that I was adopted. In it, my mom holds me in her arms. She's looking down at me, smiling at my little 3-day-old face. My brother's looking over her shoulder, smiling, and my father looking down at his little family, so enraptured. But what you don't know is that right before the photo is taken, my dad leans in and asks my mom, "Is this the one you want?" My mother is horrified. She's like, "Earl, it's a baby, not a car." And then snap, Kodak moment captured. But it's a weird thing, isn't it? To suddenly be handed a child and be told, here, this one's yours. And thinking, yeah, okay, this one's good. Especially when there's no biological connection. Now, for my adopted parents, or as I like to call them, my parents, in our modern society, what they did was applauded. It was considered a good thing. But in Jesus' time, I have to wonder, what did it cost Joseph? And was there ever a time that he wondered, can I love this child as my own? And we don't know a lot about Joseph. We know his occupation. We know that he listened and obeyed God. We know that he was righteous and that he cared for Mary. And there's this great story in Luke where the tweener Jesus goes missing. And it says Mary and Joseph anxiously looked for him. And it's that word, that anxious, that I think that Joseph came to care for his adopted son, or as he might say, his son. He came to care for him as his own. And I want to think that there was a time that he too pulled his son into his lap and laid his cheek against his head and told him that he was a chosen, that he was special. I want to think that Jesus learned how to love, not just because his mom loved him, though that's a good thing, or that his heavenly Father loved him, that's a good thing too, but because his dad, his adopted dad, Joseph, loved him as well. because it's this Jesus, it's this adopted son of Joseph, who wasn't born of natural descent, nor of human decision, nor of a husband's will, who gave us the right to be called children of God. It is this Jesus that allows us to be adopted into the family of God.